You were never meant to find a wall at the end of everything. No fence, no final gate, no place where the stars fall off into nothing. The edge you once imagined, like the rim of a bowl, slowly dissolves, because the universe has no shoreline. It stretches not like a map, but like a breath, expanding softly, endlessly. The more you try to find the border, the farther it recedes. The stars aren't just scattered in distance. They're layered in time, their light reaching you not as it is, but as it once was, long before your breath. You close your eyes, and still the space around you grows. The expansion is not just outside you, it is through you, between your atoms, between the galaxies, between thoughts. You live in a cosmos that never sits still. Every second, space itself expands, like dough rising quietly in the dark. And because it's not objects flying through space, but space itself stretching, there is no center and no edge. Wherever you are, that's where it begins, and wherever you go, it continues. There's no outer ring, no final boundary, only more and more and more. If you could ride a beam of light, you would never find a place where the sky ends and the void begins, because there is no such place. The void is not separate from the stars, it holds them gently. You are inside something uncontainable, like a wave that forgot where it started, like a breath that never fully leaves the lungs. The universe is not a shape you can hold in your mind. It is a rhythm, and you are part of it. Galaxies drift apart not because they choose to flee, but because the fabric beneath them stretches. Like dots on a balloon, expanding, they move not from force, but from the quiet growth of the surface. Beneath them, this expansion doesn't make a sound. You cannot hear space growing, but it does. With every moment, the distances increase. The night sky may look still, but it is moving in every direction at once. Even light, the fastest thing, you know, struggles to keep up. Photons stretch as they travel, their wavelengths pulled longer, redder, softer, like whispers fading into distance. The farther a galaxy is, the older its light, the more drawn out its glow dot. So when you look outward, you are looking backward. And when you look far enough, you begin to see the early flickers, the glow from when everything was still condensed, still trembling with heat. And you realize the edge you imagined was never a wall. It was a limit of time, a horizon made not of matter, but of how far light has been able to travel since the beginning. This means the universe has a visible edge, but not a physical one, not a cliff or a crack or a silence, just a soft blur, beyond which light hasn't yet arrived, and even that blur is temporary. Because with time, more of the cosmos becomes visible as ancient light finally reaches your eyes, like messages sent from childhood. But at the same time, other parts slip away, moving faster than light can follow. Not because they break the rules, but because space itself is not bound by light's limits. You begin to understand the universe is not a box with walls. It is an unfolding, a flower that never stops opening, and you are sitting quietly inside. One petal. If the universe had a border, you might ask, what lies beyond it? But no such question is needed here, because there is no outside. There is only what has come into being and what is yet to be seen. This can be hard to hold in. Your mind, you were raised to understand lines, fences, edges. But this is a place made of expansion. Even the atoms in your body come from that stretch. Once compressed into a singular point, then scattered wide, forged in stars, breathed into everything. You were made of what was stretched. You are not outside the universe. not even merely inside it. You are part of it. There is no shore to step onto. There is no distant edge where a great sign reads, "Here it ends." There is only a softening, a fading, a becoming. The night sky, as it grows darker, is not emptying, it is deepening. Each star you see is a layer peeled back through time. Each patch of darkness is a page you haven't read yet. Even the void between galaxies is filled with dark matter, with background light, with the stretch marks of ancient expansion, and yet you feel still, held, as if floating in a great quiet tide. A sea with no shore. The galaxies recede not because they're turning away from you, but because space, the very stage, expands beneath their feet. There's no central point they are fleeing from, no edge they are racing toward, only a mutual parting like dancers moving slowly away, each one still holding the rhythm of the same cosmic music. And that's why you can't sail to the edge, because there is no edge to reach, only more universe, more time, more distance made, not of miles, but of possibility. The further you drift into this thought, the quieter it gets, as if the universe is not just expanding in space, but into stillness. You don't need to imagine what's beyond the edge, because the edge was never a destination. It was always a misunderstanding, a line drawn by habit. The real question is not where it ends, but how it began, not what lies beyond, but what rises within. The universe has no shoreline, but it has a current, and you, even in your smallest breath, are being carried by it. There is something comforting about a circle, a shape that returns to itself. Something in you once believed the sky must do the same, that if you went far enough in one direction, you would arrive back at the beginning. As if the universe were a great cosmic loop, it would have been elegant, a celestial sphere, curving quietly around you, cradling you in symmetry. A universe that folds in on itself like a perfect echo. But reality doesn't always choose elegance. Sometimes it chooses openness. The stars above you do not form a dome. They are not lights pasted to a shell. They are distant suns, each drifting farther away, not because they loop, but because space stretches straight, and perhaps endlessly. There is no known path that brings you back around, no glowing seam in the sky where the ends meet. The universe doesn't behave like a closed hallway. It expands more like an open plain, one where every step forward creates more plain beneath your feet. You live in a space that might be flat, not like a table, but in a stranger sense. A place where parallel lines don't meet again, and paths diverge without reunion. It's a quiet, unsettling thought at first, that you may walk forever and never come home the same way. But then, you begin to feel the wonder in that freedom. A sky that never wraps around you is a sky that always gives you somewhere new to go. In geometry, they speak of curvature, of surfaces that bend back into themselves, like a balloon or the surface of Earth. But the shape of the universe is not drawn in chalk. It is drawn in light, and in how light moves through space. If the universe were curved like a sphere, then beams of light sent from one place would someday return, like boats that circle the globe. But no light has done that. Instead, light keeps going further and further, red shifting gently as it moves, its path straight and true through the fabric of spacetime, like a song stretched out by distance. This is the evidence you float in now, that the universe seems to be flat on the largest scales your eyes and instruments can reach. That space does not loop or lean, but moves outward in even lines. You drift in that idea for a while, A cosmos that doesn't wrap, but opens in every direction, as if inviting you to ask more than it answers. This flatness doesn't mean emptiness. It doesn't mean dullness or lack of wonder. It means the universe is not turning back on itself. It means that every direction leads not to closure, but to continuation. You begin to understand how scientists trace this shape, not with rulers, but with light. Cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of the Big Bang, is one of the tools that whispers the universe's shape, like wrinkles in silk. The tiny fluctuations in that ancient light can reveal how the fabric of space-time is sewn. And it tells you, the sewing is wide and straight. A closed universe would magnify or shrink those wrinkles. A curved cosmos would warp the geometry of what we see. But so far, the patterns whisper symmetry, not of loops, but of smoothness. Still, you wonder, could it curve so gently that you just can't tell? Could you be a speck on a vast balloon so large its roundness feels flat beneath your feet? That possibility remains, like a soft question in the quiet of the sky. But until light circles back, you are left with straight paths and widening silence. And this straightness, it changes how you think of the sky. Not as a globe you can map, but as an invitation you can't outrun. The stars do not rise and fall. In a dome, they sail through openness, some already vanished, their light only now arriving, each one moving, not in orbit around you, but outward in the expansion of it all. You float through this thought, letting go of the need for loops, and embracing the possibility that the universe simply does not return. There is beauty in finality, but also in drift. There is comfort in circles, but also in lines that never end. You live in a universe that might never repeat itself, where your steps are not echoes, but first footprints. And so, the sky doesn't curve back around, not because it's broken, but because it was never designed to close. You are not walking inside a snow globe. You are walking in possibility, a space that stretches outward, and in its quiet flatness, carries 1,000 questions. Even the shape of the universe becomes a story, one written not in sentences, but in light waves and radiation shadows, in the red edges of galaxies and the clean lines of photons. Some stories loop, some stories spiral, but this one, your universe, might just unfold endlessly, each chapter turning outward into the next. You may never walk all of it, but you can float in the knowing that there is no endpoint where the cosmos says enough. No sky that bends to send you back where you came. Instead, there is openness, a universe that says, go on. And so you drift onward, not in circles, but into stillness, where the map doesn't fold back, but stretches toward the next soft mystery, a universe that grows, not from a center, but from every point at once. You soften into the thought that space is not a finished drawing. It is a cloth that keeps weaving itself while you cross it. A map that changes as you walk is not broken, it is alive. Each moment lengthens the distances between faraway things, not by pushing them, but by giving more room between them. You are not leaving anything behind. The stage is simply widening under your feet. To picture this, you do not need machinery or hurry. Think of dough set quietly to rise. The raisins drift apart without taking a single step. They are carried by growth. Galaxies behave like that on the largest scales. They do not fire engines and flee. They rest on a fabric that stretches. As it widens, their light stretches too. Colors slide toward the red, like a violin note lowered until it becomes a hum. Nearness tells a different story. Where matter is tightly woven, the stretch loses influence. Stars keep their orbits, planets keep their paths. Your local neighborhood is held by delicate handshakes that expansion does not break. The widening works best across vast emptiness, between great islands of galaxies where there is little to oppose it. The open ocean changes. The sheltered harbors stay familiar. Imagine a grid drawn on a rubber sheet. If you pull the sheet evenly, each square grows. 2 dots at opposite corners separate because the space between them grows. Tie those dots with a strong thread and they resist, while the pull shows up elsewhere. You are not an ant on rubber, and the universe is not latex. Yet the lesson lands. Distance can increase without journey, and a location is less an address than a relation to all the rest. If there were a single center, you could point to it and say, the growth begins there, but every vantage sees most others recede. That is the signature of uniform expansion. It feels intimate because you measure from where you stand. It is also impersonal because every place could say the same. You are always in the middle, not by privilege, but by the nature of growth that fills itself from within. Light records this widening. Wave crests leave a distant galaxy closer together than when they arrive. The fabric stretched under them, and the intervals grew. What your eye reads as faint and old carries the memory of the road. To measure the cosmos is to listen for that lengthening, then read color as stomp. A soft translation happens. Farther means redder, older means dimmer. Remoteness becomes a shade you can feel. This does not mean everything is drifting apart. In every way, bound structures remain bound. A star does not dissolve. A galaxy does not slur into mist. Expansion shares the stage with the forces that tie things close. Where the tie is strong, the cloth slides through the clasp without opening it. Where the tie is weak, the cloth draws things away from one another so gently that only long ages can show it. The rule that nothing outruns light lives safely beside this story. That rule speaks of motion through space. Expansion speaks of the growth of space. A shoreline can retreat faster than a runner if the sea rises along the entire coast. No ship has broken a speed limit. The water has changed the distances. So, too with far galaxies whose apparent retreat outruns any rocket. What grows is the stage itself. You might worry that a changing map cannot be trusted. In truth, it teaches a deeper trust. Ratios remain faithful. The way one distance compares to another stays reliable, and the way colors shift tells you how long light has traveled. You can follow relations even when absolute measures evolve. Music offers the analogy. You still hear the melody when the key drops. Intervals hold the meaning together. Look inward and you find rhyme. Even within your body, space is generous. The small is not packed like gravel, but open like fog. Patterns sustained by quiet rules. That is not the same widening as the cosmic one, yet it whispers the same comfort. Emptiness is room for order to breathe. You are not crowded by the universe's size or its change. You are held within its roominess. Old maps assumed fixed shores. This map admits tides. You draw a point for a galaxy, a thread for a filament, a hollow for a great void. And by the time the ink dries, the canvas is wider. This is not failure. It is evidence that your drawing belongs to a living world. The task is not to nail the sky to the table, but to learn its breathing and keep revising with grace, because the cloth grows evenly on the grandest scales. The broad geometry looks simple. Large triangles close as you expect. Straight lines stay straight enough for as far as you can trace them. The comfort here is not smallness, but smoothness. The universe need not curve back on itself for wonder to survive. It can be wide, level, and still astonishing, because the astonishment lives in how it keeps making room. Follow one photon in your mind. It left when the universe was younger and smaller. While it crossed the widening distances, its color drifted to lower pitch. It arrives at your eyes a little stretched and entirely sincere. It has carried the story of the road. Every distant star speaks that language. Read the red, and you read the record of the path as much as the source that sent it. If you could hold every path in one glance, you would see a slow flowering petals added in all directions. Edges of the bloom receding from every center. There is no single stalk in space anchoring it. The stalk is time itself. Why there is a cloth to stretch remains a question, but you do not need the answer for sleep. The pattern is enough tonight. Widening, cooling, dimming, deepening, scale. Gives kindness. When your worries feel hard and narrow, set them down beside the long widening of the world. The comparison does not erase them, it loosens their knot. The same growth that lengthens distances also lengthens patience. You learn to rest within change without demanding that change stop. The map alters under you, and still you belong on it, step by step. There is still a horizon, but it is made of time, not walls. Beyond it are places whose light has not yet walked the lengthened road to you. Wait, and more of the letter will arrive. Yet some regions recede so quickly that their stories will drift forever beyond your reading. Both truths can live together, a future of seeing more and a future of letting go. Openness includes both welcome and farewell. A changing map suggests a new compass. Navigate by relations, not edges. Farther means redder, older means fainter. Emptier means faster parting. Clustered means held. With these gentle rules, you can find your way in a room that keeps expanding. Certainty becomes softer, but orientation becomes kinder. You move with the growth, not against it. Step again, and the floor lengthens to meet your foot. Reach, and midway through the reach, the space has grown, and yet the reaching remains right. A map that changes as you walk is not a trick. It is an invitation to keep walking with humility. Replace the urge to pin with the habit of listening. Replace the wish for walls with the practice of watching things relate. Let the borders in your mind soften. Treat distances as stories rather than barriers. Let growth become a lullaby instead of a threat. You do not need to fix the shape of everything tonight. Let it widen while you rest. The universe has done so for a long time and will continue whether or not you stare at it. You can entrust the night to it. The cosmos is not a picture on the wall. It is the wall becoming a wider room. Each moment redraws where everything is, and yet the proportions remain faithful enough for wonder to stand on. You are safe. The floor will always arrive under your next step, because arriving is what the floor does. The map keeps its promise, even as it changes its scale. Close your eyes, and the bloom continues. Somewhere, a beam is stretched a little. More, a cluster leans a little farther from another. A hollow grows a little deeper. Morning will not shrink that growth. Morning will bring a gentler appetite for it, and readiness to ask what else this changing map can show. What else it can show is time's secret folded into distance. When you look far, you also look back. The road's growth does more than widen space. It preserves ages. The farther your gaze travels, the younger the fires you will see. The map remakes space as you walk. and it remakes history as you look. You settle into the gentle thought that every star you see is a messenger from the past. Each point of light you trace across the sky is not where that star is now, but where it was when it sent its glow toward you. The farther your gaze travels, the younger the universe you glimpse. Distance folds into time, and time drapes itself over space like a silken veil you can peer through. When you look to your neighbor, the sun, you see it as it was 8 minutes ago. Its light leaves, traverses the expanse between you, and arrives after a brief pilgrimage. That light is a soft echo of a moment already past, but close enough that the past feels almost present. Yet when you turn your eyes to the Andromeda galaxy, you see it as it was 2.5 million years ago when early humans were just mastering fire. You look back, not ahead. This backward journey grows more profound the more distant you peer. The light from galaxies billions of light years away began its voyage when the universe was still young, when galaxies were forming, when stars ignited for the first time. The photons that brush your eyelids tonight are relics of that childhood, faint whispers from an age when everything was closer, warmer, and full of newly kindled light. Imagine that each photon is a memory. It carries the imprint of the moment it was born, the glow of a hot star, the swirling gas of a nascent galaxy. As it travels, the stretching cosmos pulls its wavelength longer, reddening it like an old photograph yellowing at the edges. Yet the memory remains intact, recording the story of its origin. When you receive it, you read that story without words, through color and time. In this way, your eyes become time machines. With each glance upward, you fold yourself into history. A distant nebula becomes a window into the universe's tender years. You do not need to hurry through a textbook. You simply drift in stillness, letting the light wash over you. Each flicker reminds you that reality is woven from both space and time. As the universe expands, the path grows longer, and the light ages on its journey. Photons traverse ever-increasing distances, and their memories stretch too. But the older the light, the deeper its tale. What you see at the horizon of observation is the cosmic microwave background radiation older than any star. A glow from when the universe was only 380,000 years old. You cradled that thought gently, a faint uniform warmth, a lullaby from the universe's birth. Your mind softens around the idea that looking farther is like looking younger. When you look inward, you see your own cells replace themselves over years. When you look outward, you see the cosmos renew itself in light. Each layer you peer through is a snapshot of times unfolding like reading the rings of a tree. Except the rings are written in beams of light. There is an intimacy in this backward glance. You feel connected to epochs that predate life on Earth. You listen to stellar nurseries, forming heavy elements that would later become the building blocks of planets, of oceans, of life. You hear the ancient rhythms of radiation, cooling, whispered across eons. Yet you do not linger in a sterile archive. You float in a living archive, where each photon still moves toward you, still carries a message, still arrives. The journey is ongoing. The universe is still telling its story, chapter by chapter, wave by wave, photon by photon. This perspective also humbles you. You understand that what you see is never the now of those distant places. The stars you admire might have changed, dimmed, or vanished altogether, but their light endures, determined to reach you. You realize that existence is not a static snapshot, but an unfolding narrative, one that you witness in fragments of glow. And in the quiet of night, you become part of that narrative. You are both observer and participant. Each blink of your eye synchronizes with ancient pulses of light. Your breath, steady and rhythmic, echoes the universe's own steady expansion and cooling. When you consider how young the cosmos appears, the farther you look, you also recognize how young you are in its vast timeline. Your life is but an instant in the story that stretches across 13.8 billion years. And yet your awareness bridges the gap. Your consciousness spans from the present moment back to the universe's dawn. You feel a serene awe as you drift in this realization. There is no fear in looking backward. There is only wonder in participating in a tale so vast. The tapestry of time unfolds around you, layer upon layer, each woven by light traveling through the silent expanse. Tonight, you rest in that expanse, letting the universe's ancient glow cradle your thoughts. The same light that danced through primordial clouds now dances in your mind, painting visions of cosmic youth. You float on beams of time, weightless, supported by the continuum of past and present. And as sleep draws near, you sense that even when your eyes close, the journey continues. Photons still travel, carrying their stories into infinity, and you remain their silent audience, drifting ever deeper into the soft night. You rest in the calm knowing that what you see is only part of all that is. The sky does not end where your vision stops. It only ends where light's journey pauses. Every beam reaching your eyes has crossed vast reaches of time and space. And beyond the faint glow lies a realm still en route, still forming the story that will one day arrive. When you look at a distant galaxy, you are not peering over an edge, but through a window whose pane is still being polished. That pane is time itself, the finite span since the universe began. Light departing from the farthest reaches has only had around 13.8 billion years to travel, and so your view becomes a gentle reminder that the cosmos is young where you cannot see. You inhabit a universe with a horizon that expands each moment, carrying new secrets into the light. Imagine a cloak of darkness draped softly over the unseen. It slips away inch by inch as light arrives, but never quite pulls back entirely. The cosmic horizon is like a tide line on a beach of stars. It recedes as the sea of spacetime swells, always shifting, always just beyond contact. You might think the horizon is fixed, a rigid boundary marking what is known and unknown, but it is far more alive, flowing outward with every heartbeat of creation. Each photon you catch carries its own timestamp. Those from nearer stars speak of yesterday. Those from distant quasars speak of epochs long past. Yet the very act of reaching you transforms them into present thoughts. They weave themselves into your moment, carrying whispers of places you have never been. And as they drift into your mind, the horizon slips a little farther away, trailing darkness behind it and beckoning you onward. The speed of light is constant, but the expansion of space is not. Space can stretch faster than light can cross it, so some regions forever elude your gaze. You learn this truth and find peace in it, that there are pockets of the universe whose stories you may never read, whose light you will never see. They grow in silence, and in their silence, they ask you to imagine wonder without witness. Soundless and unseen, the horizon is drawn by the balance of light's velocity and the universe's swelling. It is a partnership between the messenger and the path it walks. You, who are neither messenger nor path, simply sit and receive what arrives. Your role is to listen, and in that listening, a kinship that says, you are part of this grand unveiling. Every moment, the horizon moves outward by about a light year, adding neighborhoods of stars to the observable stage. Memory of this movement is imprinted on the cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of creation, which itself drifts into view in ever fainter waves. Those faint waves are the oldest message you can receive, traveling from a time when the universe was too hot for atoms, and yet warm enough to glow. You hold that glow in your mind tonight, a breastplate against the chill of not knowing. There is a curious comfort in this boundary of vision. It reminds you that discovery is never complete. What you see is a beginning, not an end. Each new flicker at the edge of sight will speak of deeper mysteries, new telescopes, new instruments, new ways of reading light will one day carry your awareness further. Until then, you let your imagination sail beyond the horizon, guided by the promise of more. Your own life is shaped by horizons too. You learn to accept that you cannot know tomorrow or the days that follow. But you do know this moment, and the way your breath expands and contracts in rhythm with the universe's quiet growth. That breath is your own horizon, arriving in waves of air that slip away into silence. You trust it because it carries you softly through the dark. The cosmic horizon asks you to practice patience. It teaches you to wait for light, to honor the time it takes for messages to arrive. In a world of instant impulses, the horizon stands as a gentle rebel, reminding you that some truths require eons to unfold. And in that patience, you find a lullaby, not the kind sung by a voice, but by the slow, eternal song of creation itself. Yet the horizon also invites curiosity. Even as it drifts outward, it invites you inward to explore the maps you already hold, to trace the paths of light that have reached you, and to let your mind wander into the darkness beyond. The darkness is not empty. It is pregnant with possibility, a canvas on which new stories will be painted in photons yet to come. Tonight, you rest beneath this ever-shifting veil. You breathe with the pulse of the cosmos, feeling its expansion. In the soft rise and fall of your chest, you know that you are both observer and participant in the slow unveiling. Each inhale welcomes new light. Each exhale releases old doubt. The horizon that always slips away is neither barrier nor threat. It is a gentle guide, showing you that the universe is always in motion, always offering more. There is no rush to reach it, for reaching is not the point. The point is to listen, to wonder, and to drift with the tide of discovery. You settle into the gentle thought that even the emptiest places in the cosmos are not truly empty. There is a stillness there, a soft tension, as if the dark itself is breathing. Between the islands of stars, the void is more than nothing. It is the stage upon which everything unfolds. A silent partner to the light dot as you drift through this thought. You feel the vast distances lengthening beneath your mind. Galaxies slip away, not because they hurry, but because the fabric of space is swelling between them. This swelling is fueled by an unseen pressure-dark energy, a subtle force that gently tugs at the weave of spacetime, coaxing it outward. Imagine two islands in a serene sea. When the tide rises, the water between them deepens and widens. The land masses have not moved, yet their separation grows. So too with galaxies. They rest in their own gravity wells, but the sea of space beneath them is rising, carrying them apart in silence. This silence is profound. It is not the absence of sound, for no sound can travel far in the vacuum of space. Rather, it is the absence of interference, the hush of emptiness that feels almost sacred. You can almost hear the faint echo of expansion, a melody too low for ears, but perceptible to the heart. Within this hush, starlight grows fainter. The brilliant pinpricks that once clustered close now appear dimmed and reddened, as if filtered through a veil of waiting. Their light was emitted when the universe was younger, when distances were smaller. Now, by the time it reaches you, it carries the memory of that earlier, denser cosmos, soft, stretched, delicate. Dark energy does not shout. It does not blaze like a supernova. It whispers. It urges the canvas of existence to enfold more space, to create breathing room for galaxies and for the invisible threads that bind them. You rest in that invisibility, sensing the gentle pull that shapes your cosmic neighborhood in the emptiest expanses. Dark matter still holds sway, creating a scaffold for galaxies to cling to. Yet dark energy wins on the grandest scales, where gravity's pull grows too weak to resist the outward expansion. You float between these forces, at once lifted by pressure and anchored by attraction, lulled by the balance of push and pull. This balance feels like an inner rhythm. Your own breath carries the same soft cadence. Inhale, expand. Exhale, release. Inhale, space grows. Exhale, stars hold into clusters. You mirror the cosmos in this simple cycle, a reflection of the same dance of forces. As the void grows, the distances between galactic clusters become vast deserts of darkness. Yet even here, the dark is not barren. Quantum fields shimmer with possibility. Virtual particles flicker in and out of being. The vacuum is alive with potential, a quiet sea where the seeds of future structure may someday take shape. You let your thoughts drift into that possibility. The hush between galaxies is a fertile silence, pregnant with what is yet to be. In the cosmic dark, next-generation stars and galaxies lie waiting, seeds cast upon an expanding field, destined to germinate. When gravity's whisper overtakes the swell once more. Tonight, you rest in that field of waiting. You do not fear the emptiness. You embrace its stillness. You know that in the silence, new stories are being written in wavelengths too long or too faint for you to see. You trust in the patience of the universe, in the slow unfolding of its grand design. Even as darkness spreads, it deepens your sense of wonder. The farther apart the galaxies drift, the more precious each flicker of light becomes. Each distant glow is a triumph of gravity's warmth, holding matter together against the tide of expansion. You feel the tender resilience of cosmic structures, small beacons in an ever-growing night. And so you drift with the silence, carried on currents of expanding space. You are both witness and participant in this quiet evolution. Your heart sinks to the slow swell of the cosmos, as if you, too, are part of that dark energy's breath expanding. The horizon of your own dreams. In this hush, you find rest. The silence between galaxies becomes a lullaby, its chorus sung, not with notes, but with the gentle stretching of existence itself. You release the day's concerns into that void, trusting them to the same forces that guide the stars as sleep draws near. You feel the vastness fold around you, a soft blanket of quiet and possibility. The silence grows, and with it grows your peace. You settle into the soft realization that there is nowhere central in the universe, no hidden throne room or privileged corner from which all else unfolds. Instead, wherever you stand here, now is as much the middle as any place could be. Space does not crown a king. It weaves a tapestry in which every thread holds equal weight. The notion of a center comes from circles on paper, from maps drawn on flat plains. But your cosmos is not confined to that. It stretches in all directions, as though each point were the origin of its own story. If you were to mark a spot and call it the center, you would only reflect your own frame of reference, not any universal authority. Measurements confirm this gentle democracy of space. Astronomers map the cosmic microwave background relic glow from the universe's youth and find it uniform in every direction. Tiny fluctuations ripple gently, but no dipole stands out to claim dominion. The afterglow blankets you without favor. If you peer in one direction, you see galaxies receding. If you turn around, they recede just as steadily. Paths traced by light weave away from you without bias, carrying histories that began long before you, yet no path converges upon a single throne. Instead, each beam of light tells its own tale, unfolding in parallel to countless others. This is the hallmark of uniform expansion. Space does not swell from one point, it swells everywhere. It is as though the fabric beneath your feet takes a collective breath, growing thinner and longer in every direction at once. In that shared exhale, there is no center of expansion, only the rhythm of growth. You might wonder if there is at least an edge to this growthsome boundary where the expansion halts. But that too dissolves beneath inspection. The universe, on the largest scales we can observe, appears boundless. Telescopes reach farther, revealing more galaxies, more clusters, more voids, but never a final fringe. The final frontier always slips away. This boundlessness can feel disorienting, but it carries a tender promise, belonging without hierarchy. You are not trapped at a fringe. You are nestled in the weave of it all. Each galaxy is not orbiting you, nor are you orbiting any cosmic seat of power. Instead, you rest in symmetry, in the hum of endless growth. Even gravity, which gathers matter into clusters, never appends this balance on the grandest scale. Local clumps groups of galaxies cling together, held by mutual attraction, but beyond those islands, the expansion reigns. The push of dark energy overcomes the pull of gravity, ensuring that no region will ever dominate the whole dot. In your own life, you feel echoes of this truth. No single moment defines you. You are the sum of ongoing breaths and choices. No single place confines you. Each step you take extends your map. Similarly, the universe writes no final chapter in one spot. It continues its story everywhere. At once, as you drift with that thought, you sense a quiet equality. The sky does not lean toward one horizon or another. It unfolds around you, a cathedral of stars without a pulpit. You are both congregant and space itself, participating in an act of creation that has no beginning and no end. When night deepens, you might try to imagine standing at the edge, but the edge is a mirage, an artifact of imagination. Instead, you feel the soft pulse of space expanding at every point under the stars. Each galaxy, each speck of starlight, is neither nearer nor farther by virtue of location, but by the local weave of history and light. In that weave, you find rest. You are not lost at the margins. You are home in the expanse. The absence of center or edge becomes a gift, a universe that invites you in without condition. No one spot is higher, no one spot is lower. All are equal in the silent symphony of growth. Tonight, you rest in that symphony. You breathe in harmony with the cosmos, feeling the same silent expansion in the rise and fall of your chest. You need no throne, no boundary, no singular landmark. You only need the gentle cadence of space unfolding around you, and as you drift into sleep, You carry the calm of a cosmos without center or edge, held gently in the quiet promise that every point is home. You settle into the gentle question of the cosmos's form, letting your mind drift over the possibilities as softly as clouds over a calm sky. The universe could be like a great sphere, curving back to itself, folding space until a straight line returns you to your starting point. Or it could be flat, extending in every direction without bend or seam. Or it could be saddle-shaped, curving open like a gentle archway, sending parallel paths slowly diverging. These ideas live in the geometry of space, but geometry here is not chalk on a board. It is the very fabric through which light and matter dance. You let your thoughts fold a sheet of paper. One crease makes a loop, another tilts it outward, and a flat panel stays unchanged. In the same way, you imagine spacetime creased by its own nature, each possibility carrying a different whisper of gravity's will. Gravity, you recall, is not simply a force pulling objects together. It is the breath of the universe, the way. Mass tells space how to curve, and space tells mass how to move. A heavy star dents the fabric beneath it like a marble sinking into a rubber sheet. Planets roll along those dents, tracing orbits that feel like lines on a curved landscape. Yet those local curves do not dictate the global shape, only the small bends. Near each mass, you drift from thought to thought. If the universe is closed like a sphere, then its total volume is finite, yet boundless like an endless surface, with no edge. Travel far enough in one direction, and you might return from behind, only to find yourself gazing at your own back, though separated by galaxies and eons. If it is open like a saddle, then every step forward leads you farther into a new expanse, accelerating away, never to double back. And if it is flat, then parallel lines remain parallel, and the cosmic map you draw is faithful on any scale you choose. Astronomers seek these clues in the afterglow of creation. The gentle ripples in the cosmic microwave background, they measure angles between patterns, like geographers measuring triangles on Earth to reveal curvature. So far, the universe appears remarkably flat, its fluctuations closing triangles almost perfectly. But a whisper of curvature, too subtle to detect, might still hide beyond our cosmic horizon. Even if the universe curves, you cannot touch its shape. You cannot wrap your hands around its boundary, because there is none. You only trace its geometry by watching light travel, by feeling gravity's gentle tug on every star and galaxy. You read the curvature by the way light bends around clusters, by the way distant objects appear stretched or shrunken. It is a delicate art, like reading ripples in a pond to learn about the stone that fell. As you rest in these thoughts, you find comfort in the mystery. You do not need to solve the riddle of global geometry tonight. Instead, you drift in the tapestry of possibilities, letting each scenario fold into your mind like a soft origami of space. The curvature, whatever it may be, does not change your belonging. You remain cradled in the same breath of creation. Whether that breath arcs back on itself or sighs straight into infinity, gravity continues its quiet work, shaping the dance of galaxies, bending the path of light, hinting at the universe's deeper form. But you rest in the pause between each curvature. In the silence where any shape feels possible, you begin with a quiet noticing. Color is a clock. The deeper the red, the older the light that reaches you. What seems like a simple shade is really a story about distance, expansion, and time. A galaxy far away does not merely look faint. Its light is stretched, its pitch lowered, as if the Universe, we're lengthening every note into a slow lullaby. Light is a traveler with a long stride. Each wave is a step. When space grows between steps, the stride lengthens, and the traveler arrives singing a lower song. You call that reddening, not because the light is tired, but because the expanding fabric has pulled the crests apart. The tune is the same, the tempo is softer. Color fades toward the edge of sight, and then into bands your eyes cannot hold. You learn to read this soft arithmetic. Farther tends to mean redder, older tends to mean dimmer. Distance hides in color, like a message written in the margin of the sky. Instruments do the careful work, measuring subtle shades your senses cannot separate. But the feeling of it can be held simply. The longer the road, the longer the step of the light that walks it. Redshift has more than one cause, and each has its image. When a source moves away, waves pull out like a spring. The pitch drops as a siren recedes. When space expands, even a resting source sends steps that grow wider on the road. Dough rises and raisins separate with no raisin running. When light climbs from a deep gravity well, it gives up a little energy, arriving a touch redder. Different roads, the same lesson. Change lengthens the light stride. You do not need equations tonight. You need the lullaby. Redshift is the hush that distance places on light. It is the way the universe says, gently, this took a long time to reach you. It is also a ruler that never touches the thing it measures. You learn the scale of the cosmos by how much the light is stretched, as surely as you can sense the depth of a well by the delay of the echo. This stretching sends the far past into colors outside your eyes. Young galaxies pour out hot ultraviolet. On the road, waves lengthen through red into infrared, and farther still. By arrival, you need instruments that feel heat as well as light. Earlier still, you listen for the oldest glow, cooled into faint. Microwaves the after echo of a time before stars. Even nearby, you can hear the principle. The sun's light reaches you quickly, only minutes old, and its color remains within the palette, you know. The nearest large galaxy, with a journey of millions of years, already shows the rule. Its light carries the tint of an older sky. Farther out, the tint deepens. Great surveys of the universe become maps of color as much as maps of position, because color reveals how long the story has been in flight. You come to trust color as a measure of rhythm. Blue is a quick beat, red a slow one, and beyond red lies a heartbeat you feel rather than see. This is why telescopes dress themselves in many eyes, some that taste the infrared, some that gather microwaves, some that can catch the hardest, highest notes. Together, they turn color into history and distance into music, and the score unfurls across your understanding. There is a tenderness in this. Ancient light still arrives, carrying both the memory of the star that cast it and the imprint of the road stretches, thin gas, and gentle tugs that bent its path. Gas can bite small notes from the spectrum, dust can redden a tune as sunsets. Dew and gravity can arc a beam into bright rings. Every effect writes in color, and patient listening lets faintness teach you the score. The larger lesson is gentle. The universe is not dimming because it is fading. It is dimming because it is vast. The quiet between galaxies grows, and light must cross it. With every stretch of that road, the wavelengths lengthen. In the far distance, the song slips beyond what your eyes can hear, first red, then deep. Red, then warmth, then only a whisper your instruments can trace. It is not disappearance. It is translation into a register suited to the age of the journey. This is why some galaxies, though bright where they are, slip beyond seeing. Expansion can carry their new light away faster than light can arrive. Earlier, songs still on the way will reach you, ancient notes, finishing a promise, but newer songs may never cross the gulf. There are stories you will never read, not for lack of pages, but because the pages are carried forever ahead by the room's growth. Yet even that sadness eases into acceptance. You do not need every page to love the story. What reaches you is enough to build a map. The arriving colors are plentiful, the rise of first stars, the gathering of galaxies, the lighting of quasars, the quieting as fuel is spent. You learn to recognize an early universe by its quick blues and an older one by its measured reds. As you can tell morning from dusk by the slant of light, redshift also anchors your sense of scale. The rule that the farther a galaxy lies, the faster it appears to retreat, sets the rhythm of the whole. From that relation, you infer the age of the observable world and weigh the balance between the pull of matter and the push that speeds expansion. Again, let music guide you. Tempo hints at the drummer, key at the instrument, and echo at the size of the room. Sometimes a light does not go red but blue. A neighbor falling toward you sings a higher note. Waves squeeze together by approach. The great spiral next door carries a small blue tint for now, but the grand sweep of the universe remains redwood, because on the largest scales the room is growing. Local exceptions are ornaments on a greater theme. You cherish them without letting them drown the refrain. As you absorb this, the lesson turns inward. Your own memories stretch as they travel through years. Older recollections take longer strides, and warmer hues, they do not vanish. They change, register. You can still hear them if you listen in a broader band of feeling. Be gentle with time. Do not ask things to remain visible in the same color. There is a practical grace in such listening. When you look for the first galaxies, you do not waste your gaze on the wrong colors. You tune your instruments to the band where far light now lives. You widen your eyes in the infrared, and the infant universe blooms into view. What looked like darkness becomes crowded with early fires, simply because you learned where their music has moved. Redshift turns the edge of sight into a soft frontier, not a wall. It reminds you that invisibility is often translation, not absence. It suggests that the unknown is sometimes the known in a different key. That is why new observatories feel like new senses, not just new lenses. Each one broadens the band within which you can welcome the old songs arriving tonight, all along. Light obeys a humble rule. It carries what it can, as far as it can, for as long as it can. On arrival, it yields its record to whatever mind is ready. You join that lineage of readers, adding your comprehension to the quiet sum. In this way, you are not merely watching the universe. You are allowing it to finish a sentence it began long before you. The red at the far end of sight is not a stop sign. It is a trail marker pointing outward and backward. Follow it to young days when atoms were new and gravity first gathered matter into stars. Follow farther to the remnant glow from before stars, when space was bright and thick and neutral atoms were forming. The story does not end in red. It opens there and continues below it as tones that feel like warmth more than light. Tonight, you lie still with this understanding. Even color becomes a measure of time. The spectrum is a calendar. The hues are footprints. The dimmest, reddest graces your instruments with the oldest steps, and your willingness to listen makes the path real. You cannot speed the arrival of light, but you can become gentler as you wait, You let the thought finish itself, where light fades into red. Understanding begins to lean on imagination, not fantasy, but the kind that holds a place open for truth, still en route. You picture the unreceived songs as already part of the music, and in doing so, you make room for the next hearing. And then, softly, another question arrives. Even if you gather every color and catch every old note, could any one vantage ever hold the whole performance? Might the concert be too large for any single ear to measure? The thought lingers like a low chord, inviting the next step of wonder. It hums beneath your breath as the night grows deeper now. You begin with a quiet admission. There is no balcony wide enough for the universe to face itself. You live inside the room you try to measure, and every ruler you lift is made of the light. The cosmos has no mirror. No single point can hold the whole sky in one glance, because light needs time to arrive, and time is local, stitched to each observer like a heartbeat. You stand in one region of existence, though region is only a habit of language. From here, your observable world is a sphere of messages in flight, limited by how long they have traveled. Another observer, far away, receives a different sphere, overlapping yours but not identical. Each of you is right, and each incomplete. The universe is a library without a central desk. Every reader turns pages that arrive on their schedule. This is not a failure. It is a feature of being inside. If you could step outside, you would leave the time that gives meaning to arrival. You would lose the very measure that tells you anything at all. So you accept the intimate geometry of knowledge, a personal horizon, a private collection of incoming light, a map that is never the territory, but always a truthful invitation. You learn to replace the dream of total vision with the craft of inference. You cannot see the entire tapestry, but you can trace the weave. The afterglow from the universe's childhood arrives as a faint, uniform murmur, patterned with tiny ripples. Those ripples are like the grain in wood, subtle, directional, imprinted from earlier growth. By reading their size and spacing, you infer the room's overall shape, even when your lamp lights only part of it. Even perfect instruments would not perfect your view. You are offered only one sky to sample. You cannot roll the universe like dice and average many outcomes. You receive a single pattern of ripples and a single set of coincidences. Your uncertainty is not a flaw in your lenses, it is a softness in what reality allows you to collect. The universe keeps some privacy because you experience only one version of its beginning. You listen to this with patience. Precision grows, but the last digit remains a whisper. That whisper is not discouraging. It is a lullaby that prevents you from mistaking your map for the world. A little unknowing softens the mind. It makes wonder possible without anxiety. Consider the limits written into light itself. Messages cannot outrun the speed that carries them, and space can widen faster than messages can cross. Distant regions may never exchange news because the routes lengthen faster than couriers can ride. In such a world, there is no place where all testimony gathers at once. Truth is woven from partial views, reconciled by consistency and tested by new arrivals of light. You practice this weaving every time a new instrument opens a new color of the spectrum. Infrared eyes make baby galaxies visible. X-ray eyes reveal hot halos around clusters. Radio ears hear hydrogen's long, slow hum. None of these alone is complete, but together they sing in harmony. You call that harmony understanding, even though no single note carries the whole song. If the cosmos had a mirror, it would need to hang outside the frame. and outside is a direction the universe does not provide. There is only within. Even an imagined God's eye lens would still wait for light to travel. The show cannot be watched faster than it performs. The stage and the clock are the same thing. From within, you rely on symmetry as a quiet promise. On the largest scales, the universe looks the same in every direction and at every location, so far as any vantage can test. This does not grant omniscience. It grants humility with guidance. It lets you assume that physics here is physics there, that what you cannot witness directly still plays by rules you can test. You trade certainty for coherence, and the trade is kind in daily life. You recognize this pattern. You cannot know every thought in another mind, yet compassion lets you proceed as if other hearts beat with a rhythm like your own. Coherence is not possession of details. It is trust that the melody continues beyond your hearing. The cosmos asks of you the same courtesy. Your own body reminds you that no organ monitors the entire organism alone. The brain integrates signals from parts that never see one another directly. The foot does not watch the heart. The heart does not watch the eye yet. The whole keeps time. Likewise, no galaxy supervises the rest, and no observer gathers every photon. Still, the laws knit a unity from separations, and the fabric holds. You let go of pictures that require edges and centers. Wanting the universe to see itself is a cousin of wanting a final frame around a painting. But this painting has no frame. It continues beyond the wall, and your delight is to notice that it keeps its style as far as you can trace it. Continuation is your evidence of a larger whole. There is tenderness in limits. Not seeing everything spares you the weight of everything. You can attend to the part that arrives and do it justice. Measurements become acts of care, careful pointing, counting, and cross-checks. You build trust by small failures that teach you to fail less tomorrow. The universe allows this apprenticeship, offering clues at a pace that fits the learner inside it. Sometimes you ache for closure. You want the last answer, the final story, the authoritative map. Then you notice how stories end with a period. That stops the breath. The cosmos prefers commas, ellipses, long lines that wrap gently to the next page. In this it resembles sleep, which is not a conclusion but a passage, a soft door to renewal. You also notice that total seeing could not be owned by a single eye, even in principle. Different observers possess different pasts. They're now slices through the loaf of space-time at angles that never match exactly. What is simultaneous for one is not for another. The beat is consistent, but echoes arrange themselves differently along each path. No orchestra pit exists where all echoes gather at once. When you accept this, curiosity softens but does not dim. Instead of demanding the whole, you ask for predictions that travel. If a theory describes your patch, it should describe your neighbor's patch too. If a pattern explains this slice of afterglow, it should fit another slice taken elsewhere. Knowledge becomes portable rather than complete. The universe that cannot see itself still leaves signatures you can follow. Light bends near mass. Clocks tick slower in deeper wells. Patterns stretched by expansion obey simple ratios. These are not mirrors, but they are faithful reflections of rules. In each reflection, you glimpse a sliver of the face you seek, and the slivers agree enough to assure you there is one face. However unseen in full dot, there will always be regions hidden beyond your horizon, places whose light has not had time to arrive and may never arrive. This is not a failure of effort. It is geometry expressing mercy. limits that keep longing alive without letting it wound. Every night you receive a little more, and every night you also consent to the remainder. Receiving and consenting become the two hands of wonder, so you become a curator of partial truths. You align them until they rhyme. You test them until they endure. You let the unknown sit beside the known without shame. This practice is not resignation, it is belonging. You live as the universe lives locally, lawfully, luminously enough in this belonging. You sense a gentler definition of knowledge. It is not the possession of everything. It is the faithful relationship to what has reached you. It is keeping promises with evidence. It is loving the world by listening to it at the speed it speaks. The cosmos cannot turn its head and catch its whole reflection, and neither can you. Yet you can watch how the reflection shifts as you change your angle, and from those shifts, reconstruct a deeper shape. You cannot lift the veil, but you can learn its weave. Progress is finer fabric, not sudden unmasking. Softness accumulates. Understanding thickens. At last, you breathe easier. The absence of a mirror is not an absence of meaning. The world does not need to see itself to be itself, and you do not need to finish the book to be written into it. Your place is neither center nor edge. It is a listening post, tuned to passing light. The song continues whether you hum along softly. Resting in this, you feel a new question arrive at the edge of thought. If no single viewpoint can hold the whole, perhaps the boundary you keep touching is not spatial at all, but temporal, a horizon. Made of time, set by how far light and ages can travel together. The idea waits like a soft door in the DU. Rest in the gentle idea that the universe's edge is not a fence, but a when. A border made of time, not of walls. You do not travel to it like a coastline. You wait, and light travels to you. Here and now, the farthest message you can receive is not from the farthest place, but from the earliest moment that could send a clear hello. There was a time when light could not wander far. The cosmos was hot and crowded, a fog of free particles that scattered every glow like mist scattering headlights. In that youthful haze, messages were born and immediately blurred. Then cooling did its work. Atoms settled into being. The fog thinned. Suddenly, light could slip its anchors and begin a long, unhindered walk. That first clear light still arrives. It has aged into a soft afterglow across the sky, nearly the same in every direction, with tiny ripples that remember how. Matter was arranged in that young age. You cannot hold that moment in your hands, but you can listen to its faint warmth and read its delicate speckles. They are fossils from when the universe learned to let light go free. To approach this border is to look outward and backward together. Every step of distance is a step into yesterday, and the most distant yesterday you can see is that release when the fog lifted. Beyond that moment, there is no picture that light can carry to you, not because nothing existed, but because the medium was too murky to preserve an image. You live on your side of that curtain, downstream from clarity, where stars and galaxies formed. When you trace faint radiation with careful instruments, you touch the edge of knowable sight. The pattern of small, hot, and cool patches whispers about the weight of matter, the pace of expansion, the gentle curvature of space. A border made of time becomes a map of what followed. This border moves only in one sense. As time passes, its ancient light has longer to travel, and you receive it with altered color and timing. But the border itself belongs to a single era in the universe's childhood. It is far and near in every direction, surrounding you like a shell of memory. It is tempting to imagine stepping past it, to ask what the universe looked like before light was free. You remind yourself, seeing is a relationship, not a right. Before clarity, the relation between light and matter did not allow images to keep their shape. Yet you can infer. You read the ripples as a musician reads a score, hearing, in the present, the rhythm of an earlier rehearsal. The edge of vision is honest about limits. You are invited to know enough by listening. The afterglow becomes a lullaby, a steady background hum across the sky, telling you that the early universe was remarkably uniform, with small seeds of difference that would later grow into structures. You now admire. Those tiny variations were invitations to gravity, which gathered matter where the pattern was slightly denser and gave more space where it was thinner. From such beginnings came filaments, clusters, and the cosmic web. The border of time is therefore also the cradle of variety. Think of a storm breaking. 1 hour, rain everywhere. The next, a clearing that lets the eye reach across the valley. The valley did not begin in that hour. It merely became visible. The universe's clearing was like their tan opening that made room for sight. The light that left on that day has been traveling ever since, stretched by the widening of space until its color now lives in a lower register, a warm whisper rather than a glare. You read that whisper with long wavelength ears. The message is reliable not because it is loud, but because it is everywhere, the same glow above deserts and oceans, above cities and quiet mountains. A border made of time has a kindness. It keeps the earliest details from overwhelming you while delivering, enough to orient your maps. It sets a first page for the visible story, written in simple patterns and broad strokes. Later chapters fill in the actor's stars, galaxies, clusters, but the opening remains a calm background upon which every other brushstroke sits. Sometimes you wonder about another border farther out, a veil woven by accelerated expansion. There are regions whose future light will never reach you because the room keeps growing too quickly. That is a different curtain, drawn ahead rather than behind. The past boundary holds the earliest readable picture. The future boundary guards stories that will never arrive. To dwell between horizons is to accept a world defined by travel and delay. Light takes time. Information carries a cost. The universe tells you, by every photon's arrival, that knowing is a sequence with a first chapter. The first chapter is the border made of time. When you consider how small the early ripples were, you feel admiration for gravity's patient art. Over billions of years, it strengthened slight preferences into luminous cities of stars. What you see today's spirals, ellipticals, and dwarfs is the grown forest. But the tree rings remain in the pattern of the background glow. The memory of the seed remains in the wood. This is why the afterglow is precious in the science of the sky. It does not show individuals, it shows origins. It is the reference tone by which you tune every instrument. When you point a telescope at a galaxy, you compare its details to the expectations set by that opening chord. The match is confirmation. The mismatch invites another look. You practice fidelity to a quiet background. You ask each bright object how it harmonizes with the faint music that surrounds all things. The universe is not random noise. It is a composition with motifs and reprises. Beyond the border of readable light, the young universe was opaque, but not mute. The silence after the first clear moment is not the silence of nothingness. It is the quiet of cooling, combining, and waiting. Atoms formed and did not immediately shine as stars. Time had to stretch further. Dark matter gathered. You sense the patience in it, and it steadies your own. To meet a boundary like this is to love what cannot be rushed. You cannot jump ahead in the book and look at pages not yet printed in light. You can learn the alphabet and infer the tale, but you must let messages arrive when they are ready. The night teaches this lesson gently. You do not tug starlight closer. You prepare your eyes, and so you rest with the thought that the universe's edge is a birthday, not a barricade. A birthday is a threshold you can revisit in memory, and memory is what the afterglow provides, consistent and universal. You do not mourn what lies before it. You honor it by listening to what it made possible. Clarity, structure, story. This border also puts your life in perspective. Your earliest memories are hazy, and yet they set the tone for everything after. You cannot see them in crisp detail, but you can feel their influence in the shape of who you are. The universe is like that. The first clear moment left fingerprints everywhere, even where you no longer think of beginnings. As you drift toward sleep, you picture a sphere around you, not of glass, but of time, a shell whose inner surface is the first day light could roam free. It is not a prison wall. It is a lantern hung at the radius that history allows. Beyond it, the furnace of earlier ages glows behind a veil you cannot part with sight. Within it, later chapters write themselves toward you, line by line. You breathe. Slower, the border feels closer than a thought, bigger than a dream. It is intimate because it touches every direction. It is vast because it is the oldest thing you can see. In honoring it, and the clock suggests the next kindness. If the first edge is made of time, then the next boundary you meet may not be the end of space, but the end of what light can show, a future where distances grow so wide that new light from far places can no longer cross. That would be a different quiet, a darkness not of absence but of separation, a limit not of being but of reaching. You let that thought rest beside you. You do not hurry to solve it. Tonight belongs to the first border, the one behind you in time, the lantern that still glows. You sleep trusting that the universe keeps lighting your room at the pace of truth, and that beyond the glow lies not a wall, but more room than light can presently reveal. You let the lantern of first light dim to a warm hush, and feel another boundary forming ahead, not the end of space, but the end of what light can cross, where they begin with a simple kindness to yourself. Not everything you love can arrive. There are places whose light will never touch your eyes, not because they are unreal, but because the road keeps lengthening faster than any message can run. The limit you face is not a wall of stone, it is a rule of travel. Space can grow so quickly that light, faithful and tireless as it is, cannot close the gap. This is the end of light, not the end of space. The room extends, but the lamp cannot reach every corner. Far regions continue their own histories, rich and intricate, while their newest letters never find your door. Only the oldest mail, sent long ago, still drifts toward you. Read what does arrive with tenderness. The dimmest galaxies you can still measure are already singing in a lower register, their notes pulled long by the widening between you. Newer verses from those same choirs will never cross the growing gulf. That is not a tragedy of absence. It is a geography of connection. Some bridges can be built. Others will always be too far for light to span. Hold two horizons in your mind. Behind you lies the earliest moment whose light can reach you, Ahead lies the far limit from which even a ray released now will never arrive. Between those borders spreads your observable world, generous yet finite. Beyond both, the play continues off-screen, in rooms whose applause you will never hear. The reason is quiet and steady. The room itself expands. Galaxies do not sprint away in the usual sense. Rather, the floor between you and them stretches. In some distant neighborhoods, that stretch outpaces any beam. From there, even a shout of light cannot travel fast enough to overcome the widening. It is as if the shoreline is receding faster than a swimmer can advance. Though the swimmer strokes as hard as ever, breathe with this thought until it slows your worry. You are not excluded from the universe. You are stitched into it. Your limits are not punishments. They are properties of the loom. Meaning does not require possessing everything. Seeing is not the same as belonging. Closer in, the story softens. Gravity gathers what it can, knitting galaxies into groups and clusters, tying them with invisible threads. Where these threads are strong, the widening cannot untie them. Your own home galaxy and its companions are held in such a clasp, a pocket of togetherness afloat on an ever-broadening sea. Farther out, separations grow. The dimmest glow is stretched thinner with time, its color slipping beyond red into warmth, then into a whisper only instruments can feel. Imagine a song so patient that, by the time it reaches you, it is more a breath than a tone. That is how the oldest light arrives, faithful but transformed, a story told in longer and longer syllables, until language itself becomes hush. There will be nights when the sky of a distant future looks emptier, not because there is less to be, but because less can be seen. The great web will remain, but its far strands will fade from view. Future listeners will inherit a smaller choir of visible voices, an island of sound surrounded by a widening quiet dot. In that quiet, measurement makes peace with loss. You can chart only the part of the ocean reached by waves that have touched your shore. You infer the rest from the waves you do receive by their height, their spacing, the faint echoes of distant storms. Knowledge continues beyond eyesight by listening for patterns that carry news from beyond the line of sight. There is humility in such listening. You stop asking the universe to show itself all. You ask instead for faithful signs. The faint background glow that pervades every direction remains one such sign, a steady hush from the first clear moment. Its patient dimming teaches how expansion lowers light's register. Its uniformity teaches how the vastest room keeps a simple beat beneath complexity. You need no harsh names for the unseen. Call it the farther field, the unarrived, the region past the last ferry. To imagine it is not to invent, it is to extend. The logic of what you already know. Distant places continue to evolve under the same rules, forming stars, then dimming them, sculpting matter with gravity's slow hand. You affirm their reality while accepting your distance. Acceptance does not dull curiosity. It sharpens care. You prepare better questions for the light that can reach you. You build instruments to gather warmth as well as color, rhythm as well as brightness. You stack long nights until whispers add up. Many faint voices pooled reveal what a single bright voice now cannot. Patience becomes a method. Slowly, a picture emerges that honors both reach and restraint. The portion of the web within your seeing grows more familiar even as the full web recedes. Local details gain texture, the shapes of nearby galaxies, the flow of gas between them, the births and quiet endings of stars. The horizon becomes less a fence and more a shoreline whose tide has turned. You learn to walk the beach that remains, tracing shells, reading currents, letting the receding water teach you about the sea. This lesson touches daily life. There are friendships you cannot maintain across widening years, dreams that drift. Out of contact, though they were real, not every letter will arrive. You honor the ones that do by reading them, by answering when you can, by sending kindness outward even when you suspect it will never be read. Consider the fate of color itself. As expansion continues, the background hum lowers its pitch, the oldest fire cooling into deeper quiet. Galaxies that remain visible will sing more softly, their spectra leaning toward longer waves. The night will hold not less truth, but a truth. You must learn to feel in subtler bands. Seeing will lean on sensing. Vision will become a wider act than eyes alone. Through all of this, space does not stop. There is no final chamber to fill, no last layer to peel away. The room allows more room, and that allowance goes on. The end of light, in this sense, is an invitation to change how you know. When messages cannot arrive, you learn from the structure of the messages that did. When direct pictures fail, you listen for echoes, shadows, alignments, and the shared grammar written across many separate notes. Return to the distinction that steadies you. End of light, not end of space. It removes the sting from what could feel like isolation. What you cannot see is still there, interwoven with the same laws, participating in the same unfolding. To accept that is to be truthful, and truthfulness carries its own warmth. Resting does not mean surrender, it means choosing. The most meaningful places to look, and then looking with tenderness. You follow traces that still cross the gulf, neutrinos that ignore most matter, ripples in gravity that travel even where light may struggle. The subtle tugs on motions close to home that hint at distributions far away. In your toolkit, humility sits beside creativity. In quieter years ahead, the island you inhabit will feel more like an island. The nearest galaxies will still share tides with you, exchanging matter and light. While far cities vanish beneath the horizon's new line, the story narrows in cast but deepens in character. What is close becomes more vivid. What is beyond becomes more inferred, more mathematical in its poetry. There is a tenderness in what remains. Stars still rise within your island, planets still circle, comets still write brief cursive across local skies. Children in future ages will make their own maps and, not knowing how wide the sea once looked, will draw their world honestly. Truth has many scales. When you think of endings, you remember that endings in the universe are usually transitions. Light that cannot arrive becomes warmth that cannot be seen. A hot glow becomes a slow background. Roaring creation becomes long, patient weather. None of this is a failure. It is maturation. The way a song's last note hangs in the air and becomes silence that still belongs to the melody. You sense that this chapter wants a gentler close than a lock. The frontier ahead is not a cliff, but a fog. As expansion carries, distant regions past the reach of new messages, you are left with what has already come a treasure of ancient light and, with the capacity to keep listening better, you are also left with what persists near at hand, the ongoing births of stars in your own small neighborhood. The way matter continues to arrange itself into patterns of surprising grace, so you draw the coverlet up to your chin and let the distinction soothe you one more time. What cannot reach you may still be. What you cannot see may still unfold. Your part is to attend to what arrives, to trace its hints with care, and to leave a patient space in your mind for the unarrived. The universe does not end where the light ends. It keeps making room. Even in the thickening quiet, you keep a soft readiness for new beginnings close by. For in the dimness, clouds will still cool and fall inward. Stars will still kindle, and local nights will still brighten with newborn fire. You begin with a gentle admission. Completion is not the universe's habit. You live inside an unfinished sentence, a line that keeps adding clauses, a breath that never quite empties. The cosmos is still becoming, even now while you rest. Processes continue that turn darkness into structure and quiet gas into fire. Large clouds of cold material drift and gather, and in their shadows, new stars prepare. You can think of them as orchards still in blossom, where gravity is the quiet gardener. The gardener does not plant seeds with hands. It simply lets what is lightly scattered fall inward, letting tiny knots tighten until heat appears. A glow begins where no glow was, and a star takes its first steady breaths. Around it, a thin disk swirls, full of dust and ice and promise. Pebbles learn to keep company, then become stones, then worlds. Galaxies have not retired. They still grow by. Slow meals and chance meetings. Sometimes they pass gently, exchanging only faint tides. Sometimes they merge, combining their stars into a new arrangement and stirring clouds into fresh bursts of birth. A collision in space is not a clang of metal. It is a mingling of families, a lengthy crossing where most stars never touch. Out of that shuffle, new clusters light up, and the night gains a few more embers. The overall pace of creation has softened from an earlier rush, a time when the universe fed its furnaces more vigorously. But softer does not mean finished. It means the music has modulated to a slower key, one you can fall asleep to without losing its rhythm. Becoming is not only about making new things. It is also about remaking what already exists. Old stars shed their outer layers with grace, returning enriched material to the medium between them. From those shells come ingredients that were once uncommon, the stuff of rocks, the breath of planets, the iron in blood, the calcium in bone. You carry in your body the record of many such endings, which were also beginnings. A star's last exhale becomes soil for the next harvest. In the cores of galaxies, dark hearts continue to feed at measured rates. Their feasting is not a hunger for matter as much as a retuning of orbits, a conversion of falling gas into heat, into jets, into a kind of punctuation that shapes future chapters. When those central engines flare, they do more than shine. They push on surrounding clouds, sometimes quenching future birth, sometimes compressing the medium and inviting it to form stars elsewhere. Planets remain possible, around many new suns. Thin disks still whirl, and within those disks, grains bump and stick, grow and settle. Rings open gaps where growing bodies clear their lanes, while smaller pieces migrate inward or outward under subtle winds. Water finds places to freeze, places to melt, and sometimes places to pool. Chemical stories begin in such ponds, not yet life, but leaning toward it, letters practicing their alphabet. Asteroids and comets continue to serve as couriers. They carry water and carbon and heat histories to young surfaces, striking hard, then leaving traces that eventually soften into lakes, soils, and atmospheres. Even in mature systems, these wanderers refresh the script, reminding every planet that the story does not close after formation. It edits itself in footnotes and marginal notes in wide fields between galaxy clusters. The web that binds the large-scale, keeps adjusting tension. Filaments thicken, voids relax. Streams of matter continue to flow along gravitational slopes toward deeper basins. The picture looks static only because your lifetime is short. Given the patience of billions of years, bridges form and fade, and structures pass their strength along like relay runners who never stop moving. You notice that becoming is also cooling. The whole room has been easing from white-hot to warm to mild for eons, and this gentling continues. Cooling does not end activity, it changes its style. Where once the universe wrote in bold strokes, it now prefers fine lines. Starbirth shifts from roars to murmurs. The spotlight turns from grand fireworks to the careful work of tiny lamps in quiet neighborhoods. Even your own corner still stirs. The cloud complexes near your galactic home harbor regions, where dense knots are primed to kindle. Future generations of stars will trace curved lanes in the same disk where you count constellations, and some of those stars will keep planets. Some planets will host oceans, some will not. The future is wider than your wants, but not indifferent to your wonder. Wonder is its own participation, its own way of keeping company with what unfolds. The universe is not polishing toward perfection, it is exploring possibility. There is no single design it must eventually reach. It holds multiple routes open. At once, tranquil drifts in one patch, violent rearrangements in another, slow erosions, quick flares, quiet gatherings. The sum is not chaos. It is a distributed patience, a willingness to try many tempos. In all of this, the laws remain firm, though their results roam. Gravity still persuades. Light still travels. Energy is still counted and conserved, even as it changes costume from motion to heat to glow. Simplicity at the base gives freedom at the surface. Rules establish trust, and trust allows variety to walk without a guard. You feel this as relief. The future does not need to be guessed in detail. To be loved, it does not require your plan to proceed. You can tend a small garden while trusting that larger fields continue their quiet labor beyond your fences. Becoming is relief from the burden of final answers. It is permission to rest in a chapter while the book writes itself onward. There is, of course, an eventual drift toward quieter times. Fuel is finite in local pockets. Stars spend what they have and then settle into embers, into cinders, into cold. But even that long, long slide is part of becoming. The ash of one era is the clay of another. The pace may slow until it looks like stillness, yet stillness at large scales only means that change has moved below your senses. Microscopic rearrangements, rare collisions, and deep, slow chemistry continue like a heartbeat you only feel. The word still is doing careful work tonight. The universe is still becoming, still as in continuing, and still as in quiet. There is a forwardness that persists, and there is a softness that soothes. You are surrounded by both. The future does not shout. It leans in, it lays out small surprises, and lets you find them when you are ready. Consider how widely new can be defined. A newborn star is new, yes, but so is a stable orbit after a long unrest. So is a molecule that forms for the first time in a cold cloud. So is a pattern in a ring of dust that did not exist the day before. So is a habit in a mind that learns to attend to patience. Becoming goes on at every scale, in every register, far beyond telescopes, and within the window of a breath. You may worry that your part is too small. It is not. Scale is not a measure of meaning. The universe's becoming is fractal in its generosity. Every level has room for participation. The kindness you practice, the questions you keep, the attention you offer are all ways of aligning with a cosmos that does not insist on completion before it sings. You sing with it now, in the register available to you. One day, starbirth in your larger neighborhood will slow to a whisper compared with its past. Even then, cool materials will still drift and settle. Brown dwarfs will glow. Long-lived stars will keep house, and the occasional meeting of stray bodies will spark a brief, local brilliance. The stage will neither flood with novelty nor close its curtain. It will remain open, letting modest acts carry the play. To sleep inside a becoming universe is to let time carry you without fear. You do not have to guard the door against endings. Endings arrive as openings elsewhere, or as transformations that hand their resources to the next scene. You can hold this lightly. You can invite it to hold you back. If you listen, you can hear the future arriving now, not as a roar, but as a breath. Somewhere, a cloud crosses the threshold into collapse. Somewhere, a disk ripens and carves a lane. Somewhere, a quiet star exhales heavy elements into the room. Between suns, these are the soundless footsteps of tomorrow. The map does not have a last square. It unfurls as you walk, adding subtle detail to places you thought finished, sketching new margins where you expected none. You will not reach a final banner that reads completed. You will instead notice that your heart has grown more willing to see continuity, where you once demanded conclusions. The universe is still becoming, and so are you. You belong to its patience, to its generosity, to its portable light. Your part is small and sufficient to rest, to look kindly, to learn slowly, to let amazement be your method. In this way, you keep pace with a cosmos that asks only this. Continue. You let a quiet recognition settle. Understanding is not a doorway you cross once. It is a rhythm you learn to keep. Each answer is a downbeat inviting the next bar. You are not chasing a trophy called truth. You are learning to breathe with it. The cosmos does not present a riddle whose single key unlocks everything. It plays themes, reprises, and delicate variations, then pauses so you can hear the echo. You keep time with patient curiosity. Your part is not to close the music, but to hum along as it widens. Questions do not signal failure, they signal life. When you learn that space itself stretches, you ask how steadily, how swiftly, and why its pace changes. When you learn that the ancient afterglow wraps the sky almost evenly, you ask why tiny ripples were placed just so. Each good answer births better questions, the way rivers braid and separate as they seek the sea. You are carried by that motion rather than swept away. The current is knowledge itself, always widening its channel, allowing you to drift farther without drowning. You practice a gentler way of knowing. Instead of clutching conclusions, you hold them like birds, firm enough to feel their weight, loose enough to let them fly if they need sky. Facts become invitations, not endpoints. A measurement is a door you keep open for whoever follows. You learn to love coherence more than certainty, because coherence lets many instruments sing together. When starlight, radio whispers, and gravity's tug hum in tune, your trust grows. If they clash, you don't panic. You tune the strings and listen again. Gravity teaches the method. On one scale, it keeps planets faithful. On another, it sculpts galaxies and bends light. The simple insight that mass curves space opens many rooms, orbits, lenses, tides, and deep wells where light must circle. You explore these rooms slowly, returning to the hallway of first principles. Nothing is wasted. Even a small correction refines the whole building. You measure again, compare again, invite others to check your tone. The structure holds because the rooms share beams. Revision strengthens the frame. You accept that some actors remain unseen and still real. Hidden mass announces itself by the speed of spinning galaxies and the grip of clusters. You never catch it with ordinary light, yet you trace its hand in the paths of stars. The wind proves itself by the grass it moves. So does the invisible partner by the tracks it leaves. Another presence urges space to widen faster with age, a pressure that does not glow. You do not mistake a placeholder name for understanding. You simply mark the push faithfully. Tools become extensions of attention. Seeing is no longer only with eyes. You learn to feel warmth beyond red, to hear the leftover hush from the universe's first clear light, to sense ripples that jostle matter without shining at all. Each new sense removes one veil and shows another folded behind it. The pattern is not cruel, it is generous. It keeps wonder renewable. No instrument abolishes mystery. It clarifies part of it, then hands you a fresher question, trimmed to scale. Ready for the next patient listening. You learn to navigate by relations rather than absolutes. Farther often means redder. Denser regions pull more. Emptier regions part faster. Ratios hold even when totals drift. The map is changing under your steps, yet landmarks keep their harmonies. That is enough to walk by. You release the urge to nail the sky in place and choose instead to learn its breathing. Repetition becomes comfort. Results repeat across wavelengths, telescopes, teams, and years. The repetition is not dull. It is proof the song still remembers its key. You accept. Revision as an act of care. Earlier ideas were not failures. They were scaffolding. You keep them where they work and extend them where they do not. Straight lines still guide spacecraft, even as deeper curves explain subtler clocks. In your own life, this stance softens. Everything, plans keep margins, conversations keep room. Sleep, too, keeps purpose. It files memories, loosens knots, and resets attention for clearer seeing. You rest not to escape learning, but to anchor it, trusting the mind to stitch by night. You observe how the universe favors long stories. Clouds gather for ages before stars kindle. Rings of dust whisper into worlds by countless gentle collisions. Galaxies mingle for eons before their families merge. The tempo is patient, yet nothing is idle. Chemical alphabets practice in the dark, spelling possibilities across cold clouds grain by grain. On human scales, you honor this by trading urgency for fidelity. You choose steadiness over spectacle, clarity over drama, listening over argument. The story advances in quiet increments. You also accept that horizons are part of kindness. Some regions will remain beyond contact, their newest letters forever out of reach. That limit does not make your world smaller. It makes gratitude keener. You cherish what does arrive, the faint warmth of the oldest light, the tender sway of nearby stars, the dim edges of early galaxies. Absence becomes context, not condemnation. It leaves room for imagination disciplined by evidence, where inference builds sturdy arches. Across gaps without pretending the gaps are gone. Cooperation steadies the path. No single measurement is sovereign. Many modest results, gathered across methods and time, compose a trustworthy chord. You watch teams compare notes, refine calibrations, and share uncertainties beside values. This honesty is not weakness. It is the strength of the bridge. Weight distributed across many cables carries farther. So too with knowledge. It spans wider when shared. You join that practice by telling the truth about what you see, and the truth about how well you can see it. You notice how coherence replaces conquest. Rather than crushing questions with a final claim, you weave them into a fabric that holds. A picture that explains background ripples, galaxy clustering, and stellar life cycles together feels deeply right. If one thread snags, you do not burn the cloth, you mend it. Repair deepens trust. The mended place is often strongest, bearing both the original intention and the wisdom of the fix. In this way, understanding becomes a quilt, warm because many hands kept stitching. The unfinished becomes friendly. You stop treating the lack of a last page as a threat and start welcoming it as space to move. Without a final period, there is air. With air, songs can continue. A perfect ending with silence. The conversation, an open ending, keeps the circle wide. This applies beyond science. Friendship, craft, and kindness all thrive in open forms. You leave a little unsaid, so listening has somewhere to land. You leave a little undone, so tomorrow has something dignified to do. When doubt visits, you return to basic meters. The planet turns, the moon keeps count, the star pours steadiness. On vaster scales, clusters drift, and the ancient glow cools by tiny degrees. These rhythms cradle you. They guarantee that even when a detail wobbles, the stage remains. You do not stand on chaos. You stand on regularity generous enough to include wiggle and weather. Confidence does not mean pretending to be certain. It means trusting the floor to arrive under your next step, again and again, so your craft becomes tuning. You tune questions, so they open gently. Tune instruments, so they do not bruise the faintest signals. Tune metaphors, so they clarify without hardening into cages. Tune patience, so it persists without souring into delay. The tuned are rewarded. Once tuned, the universe often answers in simple lines. A slope on a graph, a repeated pulse, a curve that returns under different lights. You learn to hear those lines even in noise. Practice makes listening durable, and kindness makes it deep. You give the sky a promise rather than a conclusion. You promise to keep time, keep watch, and keep a hospitable mind. You will bring back maps for revision rather than for closure. You will prefer honest edges to pretty certainties. You will let correction feel like care. In return, the universe keeps offering beginnings disguised as borders, hints disguised as quiet, and gifts disguised as work. A story without a last page is a mercy. It means you are always invited to begin again, softly and truly. You end the day by letting the questions rock you like waves. You do not force closure. You allow the mind to place markers and return tomorrow. Sleep is part of the method. While you rest, memories consolidate, loose ends knit, and small insights take root. In the morning, you will not own a destination. You will carry a clearer tempo. That is enough. The book remains open on the nightstand of the universe. The margin beside tonight's page invites a new line. You sense an edge that whispers like a doorway. You remember how often an edge turned into a beginning. The visible horizon was not a wall, it was a moment in time. The red end of sight was not an ending, it was a path into warmth. The silence between galaxies was not emptiness, it was a widening room. Every border introduced you to a new key. You learned to expect continuity beneath apparent breaks, and to meet each boundary with the same quiet vow. Listen first, then speak, and let the next measure teach you how the song wants to go. If you doubt, consider the most ordinary marvel. Light that leaves a distant star crosses eons and arrives exactly when you are ready to notice. That is not magic. It is the basic grace of steady travel in a wide room. Your noticing is part of the story. The universe becomes knowable when attention keeps its appointments. Your part is small and sufficient. Show up gently, measure honestly, and welcome revision as a sign of friendship with reality. You do not need a last page. You need a faithful page. Turn. The rhythm you keep tonight is not loud. It is a slow tide, rising and falling in your chest, echoing larger tides in the dark. You do not lead those tides. You accompany them. You drift with their patience across topics and scales, from atoms assembling in cold clouds to planets cooling into seas, to galaxies learning new arrangements after long courtships, to the faint background hush cooling degree by careful degree. All of it ongoing, all of it inviting, all of it enough for wonder that does not weary. So you rest inside a truth that asks nothing dramatic from you. Keep listening for coherence. Keep choosing proportion. Keep favoring questions that open rather than close. You do not need to rush to the end of the book. There is no end waiting to be rushed toward. The meaning is in the turning, in the willingness to be a good reader of a living text. It is in the kindness with which you treat the paragraph you are given, and the tenderness with which you hand it to the next reader. You make one more small promise before sleep. You will let amazement be your method. You will let accuracy be your affection. You will let patience be your practice. You will let humility be your companion. These are not decorations of science. They are its breathing. Worn together, they make you steady in a world that is still becoming, and generous in a story that keeps adding verses. The quiet closes around you like a soft cover. The book remains open, light pooling on the unread page. You arrive at a thought that does not close, a gentle realization that every edge you reach is a doorway. You have walked through the chapters of distance and time, learned the patience of light and the hush of widening space. And now you hold a familiar question. If there is an end, what waits beyond it? The answer settles softly. A beginning waits. Not a reversal or a loop, but a fresh direction, a change of key, a quiet invitation to keep listening. You let the idea rest and breathe. The horizon behind you is made of the earliest light that could travel free, and the horizon ahead of you is made of distances that new light can never cross. Between them, your world unfolds. Those boundaries are honest, but they are not endings. They are conditions, tempos set by expansion, proofs that knowledge is a relationship with time. You cannot step outside the song, but you can keep learning its phrases, finding new harmonies as instruments join. Edges appear everywhere once you start to see them, in the reddening of far galaxies where color becomes time, in the dimming of future skies as more regions slip past the reach of messages, in the way geometry might be almost flat, with curvatures too gentle to hold in a single glance, in the way maps change as you walk, adding detail while you move. Each edge taught you to trade final answers for rhythms. Each one asks you to trust coherence over closure. You carry examples like small stones in a pocket, the afterglow of the universe's childhood, a border made of time, not a barrier of place, the silence between galaxies, not emptiness, but a widening room, the redwood drift of light, not failure, but translation into a lower register, the apparent centerlessness of everything, not aimlessness, but a democracy of origins. You turn each stone over, feeling how the smoothness came from long travel, and you feel your mind smoothing in the same way. The beginning at the edge is not mystical fog, it is practical kindness. When the visible ends, inference begins, guided by rules that have been faithful in every test. You imagine responsibly, you extend the curves that fit, you allow for surprise, you hold uncertainty with grace. The next chapter opens because you keep a clear margin where new evidence can write. In that margin you place the tools you have learned to trust, careful measurement, patient comparison, gentle revision, shared attention. Even within your island of bound galaxies, beginnings keep happening. Cold clouds lean toward collapse. Disks around quiet suns arrange dust into lanes where future worlds will practice their orbits. Old stars sow heavy elements into the fields between systems, seeding the chemistry of oceans and rocks and breath. The universe has not retired. It has adopted a slower meter, and the slowness is merciful. It gives you time to notice. You think about time itself, how it threads beginnings into every scale. On human scales, sleep closes the day and opens the day after, memory settling like silt in clear water. On stellar scales, fuel that ends in one heart becomes material for another heart elsewhere. On galactic scales, meetings that look like endings, mergers, tides, tidal tales become new arrangements where starbirth brightens again. The edge of one life spills forward into the start of another. The book writes onward, not because pages repeat, but because the grammar permits the story to continue. So you come to trust a simple pattern. Boundaries announce the grammar of the world. They mark where one clause yields to the next, where the sentence pivots, where breath is taken, and the voice resumes. The grammar does not end thought. It allows thought. A full stop in one line is a capital letter in the line that follows. In physics, this reads as continuity beneath change, conservation beneath form, law beneath event. In your breathing, it reads as peace. You return, for a moment, to the speed of light. It is not a cage, it is a covenant. It is the rhythm that lets messages keep their shape across a widening room. Because it is steady, histories can be read. Because it is finite, horizons exist, giving meaning to sequence and place. Edges appear because the tempo is faithful, and beginnings appear because new notes still fit the meter. You rest inside that fairness. You remember, too, that gravity is a memory that never forgets. It carries the imprint of small preferences, from the early patterning of the sky into the grand architecture of filaments and clusters. It bends light, it sculpts motion, it stores information in orbits that outlast their makers. Where things fall together, they write new sentences. Where they drift apart, they make room for other sentences. The beginning at the edge is the grammar of gravity agreeing with the rhythm of light. You look again at color. Blue is a forward lean. Red is a backward view. Infrared is the warmth of long travel. Microwave is the memory of the first clear day. Even when colors vanish from sight, their order remains, a scale that can be played by instruments designed to hear what eyes cannot. Each extension of hearing is a fresh start. A new detector is a new door. The edge shifts because your senses do, and with each widening of sense comes the quiet joy of first light all over again. Beginnings also arrive as refinements. A better calibration is at dawn. When communities compare notes and keep what agrees, when they hold disagreements in the open, the next chapter becomes safer for everyone. The edge of error becomes the beginning of honesty, the place where trust can grow. You think about the long future, when more of the distant web will slip beyond reach. That future is not a curtain drop. It is a change in the kind of beginnings available. There will be fewer fresh letters from far away and more local pages to read. Oceans of detail remain within your island. Galactic weather, the lives of long-lived stars, cold cloud chemistry, planetary architecture, and subtle ripples through matter. Fewer horizons do not mean fewer wonders. They mean closer ones, requiring quieter instruments and longer patience. You hold the thread of humility. It is not the same as shrinking. It is the habit of fitting yourself to the size of the question. At hand, neither larger nor less. This habit turns mystery from a threat into a companion. You are allowed to be unfinished. You are invited to be precise about what you do and do not know. At that edge, the beginning is a promise you can keep, to return, to check, to learn, to share. So what, exactly, is the beginning that waits at the edge? It is the next question, shaped tightly enough to be answerable. It is the next observation, tuned to the band where the hidden signal lives. It is the next attempt at joining what fits and letting go what does not. It is the patient willingness to be surprised by reality's generosity. The wonder you feel is not decoration. It is the right response to a world that keeps giving you more to love the longer you look. You do not promise yourself a final insight. You promise yourself more faithful seeing. You prefer the clarity of a smaller, honest truth to the glare of a grand slogan. You keep a small, clean table where evidence can sit without being rushed. You cultivate the quiet in which a difficult pattern can emerge. You measure twice, cut once, and welcome the colleague who measures a third time. These are not delays. They are the beginnings that keep mistakes from becoming monuments. You return to one last image, a horizon at dusk, not a wall, but a line that glows. The glow is scattered sunlight and air, color made by dust and angle, a physical story that your heart reads as promise. Above it, stars will appear, not because the day ended, but because the day completed its turn into night. Night is not the opposite of day so much as the other way day is. The edge is the hinge between them, the beginning of the sky's deeper register, so you come to rest with a final kindness. The universe does not close its doors. It opens into deeper stillness. It opens into patience, into texture, into the possibility of being surprised again tomorrow. You are permitted to fall asleep before the book finishes because the book cannot finish. It can only go on, and that is its mercy. You are allowed to be a chapter, and a quiet one. The beginning that waits at the edge is already here, in your breath, in the small readiness you carry into rest. You will wake inside the same unfinished sentence, with the same steady meters guiding you. Light that keeps its pace, gravity that keeps its memory, space that keeps its widening, matter that keeps its slow rearrangement. You will bring your listening, you will bring your care, you will bring your willingness to let wonder be your teacher again. This is enough for tonight. You can rest. You pull the coverlet close. The room dims. Outside, ancient light continues to arrive like snow, each flake a message from distances turned into time. Inside, your mind unclenches, and finds the simplest beginning of all, a single, gentle breath that starts the next measure of the song.